Hey guys, it's Julian, and today I'm going to be showing you how to make Breakbeat Techno like Jensen Interceptor and Djedjotronic. As usual, you can get the project file and samples and MIDI and presets and all that kind of stuff in this video in the description, and if you're a patron on my Patreon, check there because it's already available. And let's get started. So, we're at 133 BPM. The first sound that I have here is the lead, which sounds like this. So here are the notes this is playing. You can see it's just jumping around octaves pretty much here. Like you can see we have like this F, and then F down there, and then like C sharp and C, and then another C down there. It's not super complicated. But yeah, you can hear like it's just really about how it's fitting rhythmically into the track. And how it kind of fits into the groove of everything else. For the sound on this one, I made it using analog. What we have here is you can see I've got two saw waves, and I've got the first one up an octave and 7 semitones. So the 7 semitones there is pretty important. If I turn that off, you can hear it's not quite the same type of sound. So yeah, and then I've got this going into a low pass. Low pass has an envelope on it, as you can probably hear. Just giving it that sort of pluck, and then we have the amp envelope set to be kind of plucky as well. After that, I just have a bit of vibrato and a bit of unison as well. And that is it for inside of the synth. After that, I have some chorus. You can hear when I turn that off and then turn it back on. This is just kind of spreading the sound out a little bit more, you know, making it not just so like straight down the middle. And yeah, after that we have this echo. This is just doing eighth notes, giving it some delay. After that we have a bit of reverb. This is also just giving it some space. And then the last things we have here is this drum bus. You can hear that's fattening the sound up. And then we have the CQ8, which is just cutting out the line and giving it a little bit of a high-end boost. And that is it for the lead. The next thing that we have here is this chord stab, which sounds like this. So, the notes for this one are, it's just actually just playing an F minor chord. You can see we just have F, the root note, C, the fifth, G sharp, the minor third, and then just another F up there. And yeah, for the sound on this one, I also made this using analog. This is just two saw waves. The first one is an octave up, and then they're going into this bandpass filter, and this bandpass has an envelope on it, so that's what's making it go like whoa, kind of into the sound like that. Then we have the amp envelope set like that as well, and then I've got a bit of vibrato, a bit of unison, and that is it for inside of analog. After that, I have a bit of chorus, just kind of spreading the sound out a bit. You know, similar to the lead. Then we have this erosion. I'll show you. Here's without this. And then with it. This is really important for the sound. It helps to get it away from just sounding like some saw waves. Like, that's what really gives it kind of more vibe and more texture and character. After that, I have this echo. You can see I've got this unsynced. So this is just like giving it some space, but it's not, it's like really, really fast. So it's almost more like reverb or something like that. And then after that, we just have a saturator and a drum bus. These are both fattening it up. I'll show you if I turn these off. So you can hear without any of them, it's very just kind of small and quiet sounding. And then we add the saturator and it gets a bit fatter. And then the drum bus really takes it all the way. And then the last thing that we have here is just this high pass, just cutting out some low end. And that is it for the stab. The next thing that we have here is this sort of like siren sound, which sounds like this. So this is meant to be kind of like a drone, you know, just something that just rings out and is just like holding one note the whole way through. You can hear if I turn this off. It works, but it's not as cool. This is really adding adding a lot to the track sonically, I feel like. So this is just playing an F, pretty simple. And then for the sound, I made this one using analog. What we have here is a saw wave and a square wave. The saw wave is detuned a little. Those are going into a low pass. You can see I have this LFO on the low pass, so that's just kind of slowly moving it there. And then we have the amp envelope set like this. And then the only other thing we've got going on inside the synth here is the vibrato. This is what's giving it that like really slow kind of pitch movement. If I turn this off, so you can hear, yeah, that's what's making it like and kind of pitching up and down like that. You can see I just have the rate down really, really slow, and I have the amount up pretty high. And yeah, that is it for analog. After that, I have a bit of chorus. This one you can see I've got the rate up a lot, and I've got the amount up a lot. And so that's what's giving it that kind of like movement. If I turn this off, you can hear it's still like the same sound, but it's not as... It's not got that like swarm of kind of like chorusy stuff underneath it. After that, we just have some reverb, pretty simple stuff for like a drone pad type of sound. Then after that, we have a bit of drum bus. This is just kind of taking it, making it a bit fatter. And then the last thing I have on here is this EQ8, and this is just cutting out the line. Sometimes drum bus can add a little bit. Sometimes that chorus can add a little bit as well. And that is it for the Siren sounds. So the next thing that we have here is the bass, which sounds like this. This is a simple bass line. It's just kind of holding out this one long note. This is something I've noticed with a lot of these kind of breakbeat tracks, like from both Jensen Interceptor and Djedjotronic. It's like a lot of times this like long held out bass works really well because it's all about, you know, kind of setting up the atmosphere and getting like the vibe going. And I feel like this kind of bass is a little bit more atmospheric. Like if you have a bass that's super choppy and playing a bunch of super fast syncopated 16th notes, that sounds cool for some types of tracks, but not quite for this one, which like I said is so like atmospheric and droning. So for the sound on this one, I made this using analog. What we got here is two saw waves, detuned a little bit. I've got those going into a low pass. The low pass, you can see we've got the filter frequency being automated, so just kind of moving it over the course of the track. Pretty simple stuff. Definitely a nice way to make it a little bit more interesting and make it not just like kind of stagnant, staying in the same place the whole time. Then after that, we just have a bit of unison. That's just kind of, you know, making it very big and respacey, as you can hear. And yeah, after that we have a bit of chorus. You can see that's what's really making this sound big. Like if I turn this off and turn it on, that really takes it all the way and gives it that like full big sound. After that, we just have a bit of saturation, beefing it up, and then the only other thing I have on there is just a compressor side chaining it to the kick. Not a whole lot, but just a little bit, just to kind of keep the low end under control. And that is it for the bass. Next thing we have here is the kick, which sounds like this. So what we got going on here is we have this sample. I'll play it for you just dry. So one of these sort of like punchy drum machine style kicks. As you know, for the style, a lot of drum machine sounds are used. You know, like anything from like those more classic sort of drum machines. And it doesn't have to just be like an 808 or a 909 or a Linn drum either. Like it could be, there are so many old drum machines that you can find the sounds from on the internet. But yeah, just one of these styles of kicks, just like a more analog kind of kick, and then I have it going through a bit of reverb. Actually, this reverb is pretty subtle in the overall mix. Like you can hear it, but it's just making the kick a little bit more boomy. After that, we just have a bit of drum bus. It's fattening it up. You can see I got the drive set there. Also got the transients up a little bit, so it kind of makes the kick punch a little bit harder. And the last thing we have on there is a CQ8, just doing a low end boost. Just when I put this up against a few reference tracks, I noticed that the bass in the kick is very important in this style. Like you really want it to be hitting like that. So I just got that there to kind of help with that. I have the kick and the bass in a group here. That's actually a group inside of a group, which I'll explain later. But yeah, we just have a few effects on it. I'll show you like the reason why I did this. Here's with no effects. And then with everything. So you can hear how much fatter that sounds. This is why I did this. So the first thing we have here is the drum bus. You can see it's pretty subtle. I've just got the drive there, just got the crunch there. This is just kind of helping to push everything together a little bit and kind of glue it together. And then after that, speaking of gluing things together, I have this compressor here. And this is not doing a whole lot. It's really just compressing like a small amount. And yeah, you can hear it. It's really subtle, but when it's on, it's just adding a little bit of it's just kind of flattening these out a little bit, kind of making everything feel a bit more even. And that is it for that low-end group. Next thing that we have here is this FM percussion, which sounds like this. So this is the simple little zap sound that I made using FM. The note it's playing is just F, since we're in the key of F. And what I've got here is, I made this using operator. You can see we just have two sine waves. The octaves are set like this. And then those are going through a pitch envelope. And the pitch envelope is what's giving it the like. It's giving it the zappiness, but you can hear it's also giving it like more of a percussive thing. Because if I turn this off, it just sounds like a little synth pluck. When you turn it on, you can hear it really has that attack to it. So yeah. And that's pretty much it for the sound. Like I said, it's a really simple little FM percussion. But it's good to be able to do this kind of stuff, especially in the style. There's a lot of like synthesized drums and percussion and stuff like that. And speaking of synthesized drums, after that we have this little white noise hi-hat sort of percussion thing, which sounds like this. So what this is it's just some white noise. And then I have it going into a bandpass filter. And then what's happening here is I have this LFO. You can see I have it on this SNH setting. And what that's doing is, I believe that stands for sample and hold. You can see that's just moving the filter around. So it basically just moves it around like randomly throughout the track. So you're just hearing like, it's like you're not even so much hearing this thing as like one main thing cutting through. I mean, you are, but it's more like this kind of background percussion, where it's just like you're hearing something constantly evolving and changing throughout the track. And that's what's helping to keep it interesting. So I've got a few effects on here as well. You can see the first thing we have is this echo with this really, really short time. So you can hear it. This is just giving it like a little bit more space, kind of some more texture as well. You can see I have this on the ping pong setting. So ping pong delay, if you think about like a game of ping pong, is where it goes back and forth and back and forth. That's what ping pong delay is. It's just bouncing from the left to the right ear. You can hear it makes it a lot wider than if we just have it on the default setting. And then after that, I just have a bit of drum bus. This really helps to kind of get away from like that dry synth sound and make it sound more like some percussion. And that is it for the white noise percussion. The next thing that we have here is this little rim shot, which sounds like this. So just another layer of percussion, you know, pretty simple. Just kind of adding some more stuff in there. And yeah, after that we have the snare, which sounds like this. So the snare is two layers. It is this one. You can hear it's just like kind of a punchy snare. And then this clap, which is going through some echo. And yeah, it's good to layer these two together because you get that, like if you listen to the snare, you can hear it has a lot of punch, but it doesn't have as much of that super high-end, like, crackiness. It does have a bit of it, but if you listen to this clap, that's all sharp, high-end crackiness. So, these two together, it's kind of like the best of both worlds, you know? It makes it really hit, and you want it to hit really hard in this style. Like, it needs to really bounce off of the kick. And the kick is hitting so hard. So, yeah, and then on the group, I have a few effects. This is to just kind of, like, tie these together and make it sound more like one sound. Here's with nothing. And then with everything. So the first thing we have here is just a bit of reverb. You can see this is really short. It's just giving it, you know, a little bit more space. Sometimes I like to use a bit of reverb with the snares in this style. I find this a lot in like a lot of tracks in this style. And yeah, after that we have this drum bus. This is just fattening these up a bit. You could hear the difference when I turned it off before. But it's also just kind of helping to glue these together. It's like with the kick and the bass, like any kind of saturation like this on like multiple sounds that are playing at the same time, it's just going to help to glue them together. And then the last thing we have on there is just a CQ8, which is just giving it a bit of a high-end boost, just to make it hit a little bit harder, make it a bit sharper sounding. And that is it for the snare. Next thing that we have here are these hi-hats, which sound like this. So pretty simple stuff. That one hi-hat is pretty much just following the kick. And then we have that one that hits right on the 3. And then I have those in their own little group. So this is a group inside of a group amongst 2 other groups. What we've got on here is just a bit of reverb. And then some drum bus to kind of fatten them up. The drum bus definitely helps with these kind of hi-hats because they can tend to sound very dry and almost kind of like boring, but the drum bus really helps to give some texture and make it a bit more exciting to hear. And then I have all of those drums and the bass actually in a group. I tend to like to do this with this style. It works really well because the way you want to think about it a lot of times with this breakbeat stuff is sort of like drum machines. Like if you have a drum machine and you just want to get the output from your drum machine, you just have the one output that you plug into your interface or maybe a guitar pedal or whatever it may be. So you'd be, if you put any effects on there, or if you put it into, say, like a tape machine, which is adding, you know, color and character, all that kind of stuff, you would be putting effects on everything at once. And what happens is, this makes everything kind of come together a lot more, as I've shown you throughout this video, when you do that. So that's kind of the idea here. Here's with no effects. And then with everything, so you can hear, yeah, it's really tying it all together. So the first thing that we have here is the saturator and this drum bus. You can see the saturator, I'm actually just using this bass frequency. Here's without that. And then with it, you can hear it's just making everything hit a little bit harder. And then I also have this drum bus here. So these are both just kind of saturating everything, helping to glue them together a bit. And then the last thing we have on there is just an EQ8, which is giving it a low end boost for the kick and the bass. We got a low mid-range cut, which cleans up mud in everything. And then I have a high-end boost, which is just making like the hi-hats and the click of the kick and the snare kind of a bit sharper sounding and improving clarity, because a lot of the clarity is in that range. Like when you hear people say like, oh, this track needs more clarity, a lot of times they're just really saying it needs a bit more of that like high end that we're adding there. So yeah, that is going to be it for this one, guys. Thank you very much. I hope you enjoyed. As always, make sure to like this video as well as subscribe, and let me know what you think of this video in the comments. Like I said at the beginning, you can get the project file and samples and MIDI and presets and all of that from this video in the description, and if you're a patron on Patreon, check there because it's already available. Thank you so much, guys, and I will see you tomorrow with another video.